Okay, Chair, we're live on YouTube, so I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to East Devon District Council's Leisure Strategy Delivery Forum meeting on the 9th of April 2024. I'm your Chair, Councillor Sam Hawkins, and I'd like to welcome anyone watching the meeting by streaming. May I remind members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting, so reserves the right to remove, disconnect any participant who's disrupting the meeting by whatever means. Please turn off any telephone devices or to silent. In the event of a break in the internet connection, please bear with us as we try to reconnect after 15 minutes. If we are not able to reconnect, we'll consider the meeting adjourned, reconvene at a later date. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand. And we'll now start by doing a roll call. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, please.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Bonetta. Councillor Matt Hall.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Present, Sarah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith. Councillor Toy.
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Wibley, please. Thank you. And I can confirm that we're correct, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 1 is apologies. Sarah, have we had any?
Yeah, we have apologies from Councillor Hayward.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 is minutes of the previous meeting held on the 16th of January 2024. If there are any members that wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand. If there are no issues and I see no hands, we'll assume that they are correct. Content of those are agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. When your name is called, please state any declarations, including the agenda item and what the interest is. Sarah.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, please.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Oh, sorry, none, thank you. I was on mute.
Thank you. Councillor Toy.
None.
Thank you. I'll pass back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, public speaking. We have no members of the public with us to speak this morning. Agenda item 5, matters of urgency. There are no matters of urgency. Agenda item 6, confidential and exempt items. There is one item recommended should be dealt with it this way. Agenda item 11. And then we have over to agenda item 7, which is the LED facilities and activity report. And I'll be handing over to an LED representative.
Hi, Chair. I'm happy to take that one. Yeah, if there's obviously the report's been read, so if there's any comments or questions that you'd like to ask, then please do.
Thank you. I think you're going to get away with this one.
Chair, I was just going to introduce, if I may, Matt Wright, who's in on the call this morning, who is LED's Director of Delivery, recently appointed. So you'll be seeing more of Matt in the coming meetings.
Great, thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you. I've got a few questions on this. First of all, going from the start, it said the improved weather has contributed to the busy atmosphere. I don't know what a bit of improved weather you've had, but certainly where I live in East Devon, it hasn't improved very much. You also say that we've achieved 1,563 sales and welcomed 1,260 new members. How many have we lost, and how does this compare to the previous 3 years and a year ago 3 years? Also, the swimming pool, you say you've seen a significant influx of visitors with 24,285 visits in February 2024, and yet your KPI, which I know is coming up next, shows a maximum of 15,000 on any 1 month. And also a question, how many people are directly employed by LED compared to this time last year? Sorry, I have to do many questions because I'm only allowed to speak once. And also, so before LED achieved an overall NPS of 63 in 10 months between the 1st of November 22 and the 31st of August 2023. Yet on your KPI again, we only seem to achieve 53.36 NPS. Are we slipping? And if so, why? And I think that is all the questions I have on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, are you okay to take some of them, all of them?
Yeah, I'll start from the beginning if that's okay, Councillor Ian Barlow. So yeah, regarding the memberships, that's around. So we currently, if you go back 3 years to COVID, pre-COVID, which is the question you asked, we're currently achieving and back up to where we would see ourselves before COVID. So which is really positive. So from a membership point of view, like we said with the growth, yes, we're growing, but also we're losing people at the same time. So we're kind of roughly a little bit more than 1 in, 1 out at the moment. So which is a positive perspective. Regarding the swimming pool, what we've included here is the activities from the junior side as well. So the swimming activities that you see in the KPI is probably just the pay-as-you-go people that come into a facility. So we're including on my report the actuals regarding junior swimmers as well. So the swim school as part of that. And in regards, hopefully I've got these all in turn, regarding to the MPS, the TRP, that's taken over a 10-month period where your KPI was probably based on the last month. So obviously there will be a slight disparity in those two different figures, but no, we're not dropping regarding MPS. Actually, we're improving all the time. Our customer service experience is improving, and as you could see from the report regarding the awards, it shows that we are continually improving.
Thank you for that. Councillor Barlow, is that, I can't remember all the questions myself, so.
Yeah, obviously the KPI, again, I'm looking at your KPI and your MPS. I presumed that was for a year, not for a month. And your swimming pool visits, 24,285. Again, it says that you've got 2,665 participants in the school program, which again, but we're sort of 10,000 missing on that. And it may be, you know, that's just they come 4 times, whatever. So I shall look forward to the next one and see how they compare. Thank you.
No, thank you. It might be worth, if it's sort of detailed questions like that, just if you can pop them in advance, sometimes they can we can just get that research done and make sure we get good answers. I didn't see any other queries on this report, so I'll move swiftly on then to the agenda item 8. Here's the LED KPI report. Sorry, Councillor Brown. Did you want to speak on this next item or the previous one? No, that's fine. Again, I think it is what it is. I know from when Peter's introduced this one before, so unless he particularly wants to speak, I'll go straight over to you, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, it was only wait. Sorry, just getting rid of feedback. Right, so also Councillor Barlow asked how many staff were employed, and I need to know how many of the LED companies actually have dealings with East Devon District Council.
Shall I try and take that?
Please.
I think we've currently got about 700 staff employed, which is roughly a full-time equivalent of around the 300 mark. But I would have to, again, if I had known in advance, I could have checked that, because we're obviously the full-time equivalent number is very different to the number on the payroll, because we have so many part-time and casual staff and instructors who only run classes. And LED Community Leisure works with East Devon District Council. I'm not sure quite what you meant by the latter question about working with the council.
There's quite a few LED companies. A lot of them are mutual, but there's one that's an LED company, it's a limited company that's not shown as a mutual.
Yeah, so this has been a paper before. So we have a trading subsidiary, because LED Community Leisure Limited is a charitable company. It deals with all of the charitable activities. Now, food and beverage is not a charitable activity, and once you cross a threshold of around, I think it's 70, 80,000, something like that, once you're trading above that figure, you have to account for your non-charitable activities through a trading subsidiary. So that trading subsidiary runs all of our F&B at the Pavilion and Ocean. We've got a couple of cafes at the Leisure Centre and the Tennis Centre. So they are dealing with East Devon related activities, but through a trading subsidiary that deals with the food and beverage. And then at the end of the year, it's all wrapped up and gifted across from the trading subsidiary into the charitable parent company.
And is that one also supported by East Devon indirectly?
No, it's self-supporting. and then it makes a small profit, and that profit is gifted across under charitable rules into the parent company at the end of each financial year.
If I remember correctly, it's probably the other way around. It supports East Devon in that it subsidises the charity.
It does. Yeah, the profits made from our trading subsidiary improve the financial performance of the subsidiary, and obviously what is trading through the pavilion and through the leisure centres goes back into the leisure management contract accounts.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate it's very useful background, obviously, to our newer members of the forum. But I'm aware we've meandered off of KPIs. Councillor Barlow, is it KPIs or other?
Well, I don't know. So the staff, the 300 staff, I just wanted to know if that was more than last year, or are we back to pre-COVID? Is it more than last year or less than last year?
I would, without having done the research, our employment numbers have been growing since COVID. We obviously lost a lot of staff. We made quite a few redundancies during those first couple of years during COVID, and we have, as Andrew was saying, as the business has rebuilt, we have started to re-employ staff. So it's a growing number of staff. Whether we've got the same number of staff now as we had in 2019, I would have to investigate that and come back to you.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got no other queries on that item, so we'll move on then to agenda item 9 is the leisure and playing pitch requirements report. The background is obviously a report that's already gone to Cabinet, but I understand we're just getting an update today on the work that the strategic leisure will be implementing for us. So I'll hand over to Liz or Rachel, I'm not sure.
It'll actually be myself, Councillor.
Great.
Thank you. Some of you might remember me from a couple of years back when I helped with producing the Leisure and Built Facilities Strategy 2021. So I thought I'd just give you a bit of background and the key drivers for the piece of work we've been asked to deliver on behalf of the council. So the strategy we produced, as you recall, had a number of recommendations and key actions, and these required both significant financial resource and also human resource in terms of staff time, commissioning work for condition surveys and the like. The strategy, as you'll recall, highlighted that the council does have an ageing stock of facilities, many of which are located in school sites, as you well know, and the challenges of being located on school sites that comes with it as well. There's also been recently an affordability issue with the leisure management contract with LED, with rising costs year on year. And we've also got new projects such as delivery of new sports pitches in Honiton and Exmouth, and also the need to take forward the Cranbrook local delivery pilot programme, which is funded by Sport England. So at the recent council's peer review, the question was asked, can the council realistically afford to deliver all these requirements from the strategy? And with that in mind, Strategic Leisure, we've been asked if we can help support the council in undertaking an options review of provision and also operational delivery of that provision in East Devon. And we thought the best way of doing this, and we've done this in other local authorities in a similar position, is to undertake a series of workshops. And we're proposing up to 6 workshops, spaced approximately 3 to 4 weeks apart. And we would be doing these on a face-to-face basis or a mix of face-to-face and online. It's entirely up to how the council would like us to do this. And we thought we'd start from a broad base with workshop 1, looking at the national context to see what's going on outside of East Devon. So we'd look at national policy and strategy, the current leisure sector and local authority challenges that they're facing, how other local authorities are actually responding to these challenges, a look at the decarbonisation agenda, and also external funding opportunities. So we'd start on that very broad base, and then into workshop 2, we start to home in, looking at the existing leisure portfolio that you have in East Devon, the challenges and opportunities of that portfolio. And this would involve looking at the LED contracts, current and future costs to the council, benchmarking the cost of the service, a SWOT analysis of individual facilities set against the leisure strategy recommendations for each site, and associated capital costs. And we'd finally take a high-level look at facility options and prioritisation of tasks. So hopefully by the end of that workshop, we'd have looked in detail at each of the main facilities and options available to you. Then the next workshop, we'd look at management delivery options. And this would look at the current marketplace for leisure contracts, management options available, realistic alternative options for East Devon Council, VAT implications, as there's been recent changes in VAT, headline revenue modelling for different management options, and opportunities, specifically that of soft market testing, going out to the market to see what the appetite is to manage East Devon's portfolio, and how management options could link to the leisure portfolio changes and improvements that we're looking at. The next workshop would recap on the leisure strategy recommendations and focus on the development of what we call a hub and spoke approach for leisure facilities and what this would look like in East Devon. And the pools would be a critical decision in this, as there's a government requirement, as you probably know, that all school children should be able to swim 25 metres by the end of stage 2. And there's also a need to look at the facility in Cranbrook. As I know, back in 2021, that was still being discussed when I was at the point of writing the strategy. I understand nothing has been taken forward. There's also other elements to look at, including that of future 3G provision, artificial turf pitch provision, possible asset transfer of educational sites, and the outreach programme and use of community facilities to deliver that programme. Workshop 5 will recap on the facility options and delivery options discussed in the previous workshops and agree on the next steps. And we've built in a final workshop which can be slotted in at any point along the way if members want to discuss any elements in more detail or have more time to discuss any elements. Strategic leisure, we'd keep a record of all sessions. We produce presentations in advance of each workshop and use that as a guide for the discussion. And at the end of the process, we'll produce a summary report reflecting the review, the options discussed, and the suggested next steps. And finally, as you will all appreciate, this is going to be quite a difficult process, particularly in respect to the current portfolio of leisure assets. And there will be some difficult decisions to be made, requiring all of us to look strategically at the district and how the needs of the district can best be served without necessarily associating this with a policy of protecting all existing leisure assets at all costs. So that's a very brief summary of what we were intending to do going forward. We are possibly looking at starting this towards the end of April, but I'm happy to take any questions. And my colleague Rachel is also on this call and is happy to help. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No, I think workshops is a sensible way of taking it forward and a chance, I guess, to let different ideas brew and see where we're coming to. Because obviously we've got our overriding strategy, and it's just making sure we achieve what's achievable. And potentially have some difficult conversations if that's where things lead. Happy to open up then if anyone's got any queries on how this sort of process would work or how it's going forward. Councillor Barlow, please.
Yeah, hi. Who's going to be invited to this workshop? And is this LED or is this just councillors? And not being funny, but you have to run this. You've just told us what we're going to do. So why can't we do that in house? Why do we need you to do that, or why are we asking you to do that?
Thank you. I think as I understand it, it would be councillors invited to the workshops, but obviously where appropriate, guests, for want of a better word, would be invited to those sort of ones. I know we've raised the question before around this, and I understand it's also because back when LED was spun off, so to speak, the council's expertise in leisure diminished with it. Obviously, we've got Charlie effectively doing some great work in probably upskilling at times. So that's where in the past it's been helpful to use strategic leisure. Liz, I don't know if you've got additional points to add.
So strategic leisure will be guided by officers as to who should be present in those sessions. We do ideally, this is about member buy-in. We need members to be guided along this process. It's a bit of a roadmap, and where we've done it in other authorities, it has been directed at councillors.
Yeah, I think, sorry, if I could just jump in, councillor, as well. I think that the main reason for asking an external company to help with this process is that we're totally independent. We're also extremely well connected at national level. So we've got lots of connections into other local authorities, and the majority of UK local authorities at the moment, following COVID and the rising cost of utilities, etc., are facing some exceptionally difficult decisions about their existing facility stock and how to ensure that provision is sustainable into the future. So it wouldn't just be a question of running the workshops. We could also put you in contact with people it might be helpful to have a chat with, both at officer and member level, etc. And I think that's one of the main advantages of using an external company.
Thank you.
Thanks, both. Tracy, I saw your hand pop up. It's gone back down again. Did you want to speak on that? Stuck on mute. Not to worry, if it starts working, dive in. Councillor Hookway.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Liz, for your introduction, and welcome back to East Devon. I was very reassured by the things you had to say. I think there is now a time to look at our leisure provision strategically, and I think members must be prepared for some very difficult decisions due to the current economic climate. There simply isn't the disposable income around to support all our leisure facilities. We just do not have that level of spend. We have an ageing population which is suffering from rising costs and reduced income, and therefore we are going to have to look at this in a very almost black and white way, in a way. So I look forward to these workshops, and look forward to hearing what you have to say, and I'm very pleased to hear that you're going to give us not only the national picture but also the picture with other district councils that are in the same position. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, just to sort of come in really behind what Nick has said and what you yourself said, Sam, and I understand that for newer members this is hard to understand. I always understand Councillor Barlow's reflex, not wishing to consult outside necessarily with the implied cost of that. Look, the report that came to the Cabinet the other day was absolutely explicit. We bailed out of providing sports and leisure facilities ourselves in-house 2 decades ago. And because the Conservatives made that decision, Councillor Barlow, what then followed was the complete denuding of that skills basis within the organisation. And as Sam has quite rightly said, Charlie Plowden is yet another sort of massive sack of coal he's been carrying on his back in recent years, trying to keep the thing going. Now, again, going back not that long ago, this forum didn't used to exist. Okay, didn't used to exist. There was no opportunity for membership and for the officers and for LED to have this kind of open forum. And one of the best of many good decisions this committee made 2 or 3 years ago was to hire Liz and was to hire Strategic Leisure and her team in order for us to find out what the lie of the land is. And by that, I mean literally as an organisation, when I became leader, we didn't actually know what we had. We didn't have a full understanding of what the leisure provision was across the district in which we live. Now, by commissioning Strategic Leisure to do that first piece of work, we have a document that does give us that. The second logical piece of work that follows, the peer review having given us brilliant and constructive feedback that we've now got to do something about our sports and leisure provision for a number of reasons. One is to try and sustain the excellence that LED have given us over many years on this. But two, it's because of the harsh financial realities. We will have to make some difficult decisions. And that is why we have gone back to Strategic Leisure, who already know the organisation, which provides us with a cost saving when it comes to the work moving forward, to come back and give us some tough love. Now, why don't we ask LED to do that? Why don't we ask ourselves to do that? Because that's turkeys voting for Christmas, isn't it? We do need somebody on the outside saying, you want this? It may come at the price of that. Or you may want to spend X saving that building, but if you do that, you won't be able to meet the requirement to have a swimming pool in community Y, which is going to become a statutory obligation demanded by the government. So that's the broader picture here. This committee hasn't come from nowhere, and the decision to go with Strategic Leisure for a second time is a really logical one. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Sort of looking at for a general officer comment here, do we need to make a recommendation to Cabinet about these sort of workshops? Don't all jump at once. Sorry, Simon, you're coming. You're not on mute, but you've got no sound coming through.
Chair, can I just ask what the timescale of the workshops are when they first begin, and therefore do we have some time to consider? Because obviously we've only just heard in the last 20 minutes Liz's proposals for how they might run.
Yeah, no, of course. No,
Yeah.
I think Liz, end of April. I was keen that we don't leave it too long, because obviously it will only drift. But you do make a good point about obviously if we make a recommendation to Cabinet's actually got to hear the recommendation to pass it. Sorry, Tracy.
Sam, is it okay to just jump in? Sorry, I was my mute wasn't working, so I apologise for my earlier attempt to come in. I was at that time just going to support Liz with and confirming the reason that we're bringing in Strategic Leisure is because they are independent and they will be able to bring with them the good practice from around the country and the work they've been doing with other local authorities. It is going to be a challenge for us as a local authority. We do need to be really clear as to what we can afford to do moving forward and what it is that we actually need moving forward, which is why taking the workshop approach will allow them to facilitate the way that we as a local authority determine what our needs are moving forward. And I think, Paul, with reference to the workshops, the first one will be a scene setting and will give us the opportunity to determine what it is that we want to cover and how we cover that. And there will be the ability to flex those workshops depending on if we go off piste into different areas as we move forward. But the key area here really is for us as a local authority and for you as councillors to be able to pull together what you feel is our need for leisure services moving forward and how we can facilitate that within the confines of the finances that we have available. So it is going to be really looking at how we move forward in a way that's palatable for us, that we can afford, but covers the areas that you as cabinet members and councillors feel that we do need to continue to provide, and how we provide that, because that might not be how we do it now.
Thank you. Rachel, did you want to come in?
I'll follow the councillors. They had their hands up before me, so.
Yeah, no, it's Councillor Barlow.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say, you're saying that there's going to be six meetings. They're going to be 3 to 4 weeks apart. So that's going to take us anywhere between 3 and 6 months. And I wonder again if we could set a date so that we have a firm date when the last one would be. And 30th of July obviously gives you 3 months clear if you start them at the end of April. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thank you. I feel that I don't know whether you charge enough money for participants at their leisure centres. We have several golf clubs in East Devon and they all charge match fees and things, and they seem to survive. Also, we have a lot of bowling clubs, which they again, they would be charging fees and survive. Are we charging enough for our sports halls and gymnasiums and swimming pools? Perhaps other authorities could be charging more. Thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah, well, good things to think for into the mix. Rachel.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, all I was going to say was building on what Tracy was saying. I think that we can be as flexible as members want over the workshops because it is your workshops. I think that when you start on this journey, there's so many things to think about, and part of the purpose of breaking it down is to demonstrate how everything interlinks, because it may not be obvious to everybody, you know, how different things interlink. So, for example, the condition and the number of facilities you have and the catchment areas they have will inextricably be linked to their sustainability, because obviously if you have a smaller catchment area with fewer people using that facility, it's going to be harder to generate the income. That is very difficult in a rural area anyway, like East Devon. But the condition of the facilities is really important. I mean, that would come back to what your colleague just said about charging, for example. And I'm wondering, listening to some of the things that are being said, whether we should also do some benchmarking, councillor, as part of this, to demonstrate, for example, you know, where your charges sit in a kind of hierarchy. But I do think that it is really important that out of these workshops, everybody gets an understanding of how everything links together in terms of leisure, and it's not just one decision after another. They have to integrate. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw lots of nodding heads at benchmarking, so I think that's a good idea. Councillor Brown.
I'll add that to the list then.
A couple of things. The consultancy, I don't know if you've got the information there because I can't get into my computer. It's broken to see anything. But consultancy costs, I know this is looking at making savings. So how much is it going to cost us to do this? And with regards to the school halls, they're not providing what we need them to provide. The people who want to use them outside of the schools are not getting enough time in there, or they're not getting the times that are suitable. There's a lot of older people now coming forward with pickleball. It seems to be just sweeping the area, but they can only have 1 hour. Otherwise, they're offered nighttime, which for older people, this is not suitable. So now there's, I think, missed opportunities, but how do you get them into halls where you can actually get more money coming in? And don't forget my first question, but how much was the consultancy costing?
I'll just answer the second point. I think obviously we've got several highlight on the second point around the schools. Obviously we've got issues with safeguarding as well as the dual use sites. So that's a whole different can of worms, which has been touched on and I'm sure still will be touched on. In terms of cost, I don't know if because obviously this is a follow-up from a cabinet report that sort of approved as part of the process. I don't know off the top of my head if it was mentioned in that or if anyone has it, or whether that's actually a Part B matter. I'll leave it for officers to have a think and come in. Simon, are you working now?
I don't know. Tell me,
you are.
Chair. Okay, fine. So we're in final negotiation, I would suggest, with Strategic Leisure, but it's well within it's well within our tender amount in terms of it's a low sum, so we don't have to go out to tender. We can appoint Strategic Leisure based on their previous history and work they've done for us. It's also within the sum that Charlie allowed within the overall cost of running our leisure facilities for the current year 4-5. So it's not a significant sum. I don't want to say the amount because we're still talking that through with Strategic Leisure, but it's, you know, a few thousand. We're not talking significant sums.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Erickson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just coming back to the comment made by Roy Wood about the fees that we are charging and suggesting that you might like to raise the charges in comparison with perhaps golf clubs, etc. I would just like to suggest that this is like comparing apples with pears, and there's probably a very different level of affluence in terms of the people who use golf clubs as opposed to perhaps leisure facilities. That's mainly my comment.
No, thank you. Yeah, obviously all relevant points into those discussions at the time. Councillor Loudon.
Well, Roy Collins is clearly a wizard for those of a certain age. Right. The serious point is going back to the facilitation of this. We used facilitation very successfully when we were developing the council plan, and that was in order to be inclusive, to give everybody an opportunity to have an input and for us to kick it around in a safe environment, trying to reach a set of consensuses anyway. And we did that using external facilitators, and I'm used, I have to say, in my working life, in going into working with private companies in particular, going in and using external facilitators when you wanted to deal with matters that you didn't have the in-house expertise in terms of facilitation to do this. And no disrespect to either LED or our own officers, I suspect facilitation isn't necessarily one of the job descriptions that we've got sat there for someone waiting to think, well, what am I going to do today? It may be part and parcel of a broader job role, but I think this is important when we're looking to try and tease through some very difficult and potentially emotional and, dare I say, political, with a small p, political decisions. So I come with a different experience of facilitation, and if it's done correctly and rightly, it can be a great benefit. So I'm comfortable with this. And particularly given the point Simon said, you know, we're not going to be raiding the bank particularly.
Thank you. And final speaker, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things, really. First of all, to make members aware, having experience on other councils, it's not unusual for third parties to be asked to help with such stuff. They bring a balanced approach. They bring a approach which is more in-depth and more knowledge-based than perhaps we could do in-house. I think the other thing to mention about benchmarking, which is, I think, essential for anything like this, it's not just about pricing, it's about type of provisions, size of provisions, and provisions per number of residents. I think that's quite important to get that balance and to understand it. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you. Really helpful points. Minded, obviously, Cabinet's approved the instruction of Strategic Leisure. And so thinking about it, the minutes obviously will capture where our views are. So I don't believe there's actual need for this forum to make a recommendation to Cabinet. And on that basis, then, thank you for everyone's input. And we'll move on to agenda item 10, Cranbrook Leisure Centre proposed. I'll hand over to Andy for that one.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a follow-up to a report, the the forum last considered leisure centre in Cranbrook, or the potential for a leisure centre in Cranbrook, last September. Since then, a couple of key things to highlight. Firstly, a public consultation event that ran between October and November last year, funded through the Sport England local delivery pilot. You can see in the report a really strong response rate to that, and particularly, I suppose, the standout items in paragraph 4, the bar chart, highlighting the facilities that people wanted to see in the town centre, and first and foremost within that, the leisure centre, with over 1,100 responses in favour. Second aspect of the report follows up from a report to Strategic Planning Committee in February, which endorsed the progression or the production of a master plan for the town centre. Really important that the leisure centre forms a key ingredient of that as a catalyst for the wider, I was going to say regeneration, it's generation in Cranbrook's terms, in terms of those wider facilities that will come forward in terms of the vision for a vibrant town centre that will ultimately need to serve a population of 20,000 people. You can see some of those, also some of the challenges and the opportunities. So the challenge around the funding shortfall relative to forthcoming Section 106 contributions, but also the opportunities around the potential for a wider kind of health and wellbeing campus to come forward. The last part of the recommendation is to note the fact that a project team has now been formed, or is being formed, sorry, to bring together likes of LED to really provide some impetus behind that, which really, I think, speaks to the significance of bringing forward a leisure centre in Cranbrook, and speaks to the previous agenda item as well, Chair. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. We had talked obviously before about we'll keep this as a sort of rolling item on the agenda, maybe with updates every 6 months or so, just because of it sits within our strategy, and it is probably most expensive ticket item there, and obviously that's risk is maybe not the right word, but there, you can see there's challenges with this as an item. Andy, the project team, I just wonder at a very, very high level, if you could sort of say who, obviously you mentioned LED, but who you sort of see being on as part of that team.
Yeah, so the project initiation document is currently being framed for that, Chair, which will confirm membership. Certainly LED, I think we need to think about the relationship with the Sport England local delivery pilots, the relationship with Sport England ultimately there as well. Also the relationship with the local community, the town council and others as well, in terms of how that moves forward, in terms of really building, I suppose, from that very strong platform in terms of the consultation exercise that happened at the end of last year.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have any comments or queries on this item? Otherwise, there are 2 recommendations as put on the paper. I'm happy to just put those then straight to the forum. On that basis, then, if we can go to ticks and crosses, I think that would be sensible. I'm a tick, but I can't find the button.
Okay, Chair. So including yourself, that would be 6 green ticks in favour.
Thank you. And that will bring the public part of our consultation meeting to an end. However, can I just remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live, and until then your comments will be live to the public.